What is going on, guys? Welcome back to a somewhat extra special episode. Today's episode, we are talking about Octopath Traveler. Just like yesterday, or the day before actually, it was the 1-year anniversary for Octopath Traveler. So I wanted to just give a round of applause, applaud the game, and say happy birthday. It's been 1 year, and I'm already pretty nostalgic about it. I haven't played this game in probably about 6 months or so. Not for lack of not beating it or anything. As you see here, I have, I think, like 118 hours or something like this. 107 hours. And the only thing that I hadn't beat, which I think now is the completely appropriate time, is the super extra secret special dungeon that's basically at the end of the game. So if any of you guys haven't played it, this is definitely one to look into. So let me just say, when this first came out and we had the initial demo to it, I played that thing probably like 6 or 7 different times. It wasn't too short. It gave you a good couple hours if you wanted it out of it. I mean, you could kind of beat it pretty quick after kind of understanding what you were actually doing, or you could kind of just take your time and grind, and you could actually get your character up. And I believe the first demo,
letting the hunt begin.
It just stopped after you got to the end of the first boss, and there was the 2 different characters that you could play as, which were Ulbrich and I can't believe I don't remember her name. You know who I'm talking about, though. And pardon me here for not really paying too much attention while playing this. I remember where I saved. I was kind of just running back through the world and just grinding a little bit before doing that final boss. So I think after this video, I'm going to give this game another couple hours of my time here.
What next?
But so anyways, that demo was enough to make me realize that this was going to be a special game. I could just tell just from the look of it, everything about it before I even played it, just seeing the art. I remember when it was in like the coming soon tab, and the demo wasn't actually out yet. And we had seen, some of the artwork. We saw what this game was pretty much going to be, and it was going to be this 2.5D, just beautifully done style. And they just did such a good job, and they put that first demo out. We all played it, and it was amazing. And then it kind of disappeared for just a little bit, and they had the feedback going on. They did the feedback demo, and then they basically upped everything and put out the other demo where you could basically start as one of, I think, 4 characters. I forget because it's been a while. Or I think you could start all eight characters and play 4 hours into each, or 4 hours total. You could pretty much get a start on all the characters and then convert your save data over when you actually got the game. And playing that had me even more stoked for it. And I think that had come out in like January, and so here we are, first week and a half into July, and that's when Octopath Traveler actually dropped. And I remember at the time, I didn't have, I had to buy it pretty much the day after. My, for whatever reason, my wife's mother, so my mother-in-law, she wanted to basically bring us all out. I don't know, she was feeling some kind of way, and she wanted to basically treat us all to something. And I ended up not going out with them. And, I told my wife if it had come up that this was the game that I wanted. And it didn't come up, so I didn't get it that day. I ended up going to the store and buying it the following day, and I was a little bit bummed out. But either way, I started playing the game. And I just love everything about this game. All the cool lore that's in it, all the townspeople, all the NPCs, all the vast array of bosses there are to fight. The world is not super incredibly amazingly huge, but it's pretty big, it's pretty vast, and you have 8 different stories to go through, and it's finally out on PC. So for those of you who didn't play it, I believe it's on Steam, and you can go basically get it right now and hop in if you haven't played it. And this game has just received so many accolades, and even just going back here and playing it again, even though the game is a year old, it's basically been about 2 years since we first touched the demo. Yeah, let's see what this is. And there's just so many cool different side tasks and little side stories and things you learn, and it's just such a great game. My only hope for the second one realistically is if they do stick with calling it Octopath and having either the same 8 characters or maybe it's 8 different characters. My personal hope was that they would call it like Quadropath Traveler and do less characters, because although this game was great, it was amazing. It's all about the gameplay, and even though the story's there and there's all the great RPG, you know, troughs from the day, from back in the day, they're all part of this game. Ooh, I just scored a big one right there. And even though all those mainstays of RPGs are in this game, you know, at the end of the day, it basically comes down to the gameplay. It comes down to the world setting and the story. So, you know, all the characters had a pretty good story. A few of the chapters, I guess you could say, were a little bit forgetful. As in, you know, they weren't anything too crazy, but a couple of them stood out to me. I definitely liked Ulbricht's story, and I picked Therion as basically my main, and I definitely liked his take about being with this, you know, bandit kind of on the run with this best friend who sort of, you know, led him astray and then abandoned him. And they went into that rich folks' home to go and steal that book, I believe it was. It was a book.
Letting the hunt begin.
And they basically branded him with this, like, banished symbol on his arm. And then they basically told him, you know, it's time to go. And then they said, well, wait a minute. You know, we'll send you here and there and all over the world. And at the end of the game, we will take this branding tattoo off of your arm. So, you know, it was just a good overall story, I thought, of, you know, a guy with a rough life being led astray and then basically being shamed into the choices that he made, even though he's changing along the way and trying to become a better person. And he does become a better person, but it's not in the typical... He doesn't just do a complete 180. All that darkness and his little bit of shyness and, you know, some of the previous pain and shame that he had, it's still there. But he does learn and grow from it. So that was, I guess, one of the main stories that stuck with me. But yeah, Ulbricht's story, his was good. Kind of about the same thing. You know, he's going after one of the strong men that he had kind of only heard in legend. And then in the end, he kind of ends up teaming up with him, even though he was sort of an enemy to him. And that was a good story. They really all have a good story. So you had Ulbricht, the very awesome sword wielder. You had Primrose. She was basically brought up in this not best of scenarios, and she kind of got traded off as this dancer, and she basically bowed under her master, and then she finally gets away. You have Alphine, who he just had a nice childhood growing up, and he always wanted to be something. He wanted to help people. He became a doctor. He set out to travel the world. Therion, he stole stuff and was shamed. Honnet, she's basically a backwoods, you know, daughter of this great, well-renowned hunter, and he goes off in search of this ancient beast, this lion kind of thing of some sort, and he's turned to stone, and then she has to go get him. Ophelia, she's the orphan of the cleric, and she's sort of welcomed into this, you know, she's kind of a foster kid, but along the way she ends up having her sister by her side, and then it sort of ends up turning out that her sort of stepdad, he was kind of an evil man, and he didn't do right by her, and she felt betrayed. And Cyrus, he was just a very smart dude that grew up and went to this school, and then he basically set off to go find the greater knowledge of the world. And then Tressa, she grew up and, you know, met different sailors and all these different travelers that had come around the world, and she wanted to do the same. She wanted to go out and create her own story after finding this journal at this yard sale where she bought it and read all these incredible stories of this person whose name was not in the journal. And she just read about these amazing stories, and she said, well, you know, rather than just reading these stories, I'm going to go make my own book. I'm going to take this book and make my own version of it and go see the world for myself. And so you can see just from the 8 characters, I mean, that's a lot of different things to touch on. But my hopes for a future game would be either if it still has 8 characters that you can kind of do basically the same as what you could here and do them in any order that you wanted, or that you could because I guess the main flaw with this game was sort of how, because there was so many characters, that each chapter, and there was basically like 3 main chapters and then a 4th chapter for each character. And so the way that it worked was the main story wasn't plentiful, but it was basically like you'd take one character and you'd go into a dungeon, and then it would sort of be like on the end of a series TV show where the credits would roll on that episode, and then on the next episode it's like previously on, and it would recap the whole thing. So it was kind of cool because no matter what you did, no matter how long you went off with the other characters and did their stories, you could basically complete all of those, or do like 7 of them, and just ignore one main character until, you know, like I am here, like 100 hours in, and you could wait till that 100-hour mark to go and do it, and then at that point you're like, wait, what is this character? I don't really remember what his spiel was. So that was both, I think, good and to its detriment, because there was just so many different characters that the story was deep but short, so every chapter was actually kind of short despite this game being 100 hours long. So my hope would be that there's either less characters or it's the same characters and they just sort of build on that, but they do it in a separate way where maybe the job classes don't interfere as much, and maybe there's a bit more, maybe less of that chapter breaking into pieces, and instead just a decently long story per character, and not forcing you to pick one character as like your main and then running through the whole story, where because this game could be played in multiple different ways, and that was what was cool about it, but I think also took a little bit away from it in hindsight, because you start off with these 8 characters and you could basically just play as one character and be a one-party team. And that's actually what I started doing, because I didn't quite understand the mechanics. So when I first got the game, I basically was just Therion, and I was level grinding, going through dungeons. I got to the first boss, and I just didn't have enough brute force and healing power to myself, and I was just getting stomped. And I did that for about 10... Well, no, I probably did that for about 6 hours. I remember it clearly. I did it for like a few, like 5 or 6 hours. And then I went and did, I think I brought Ulbrich in at that point, and I did his first part of the story, even though I had already played the demo, but I didn't transfer it over. So that was a little bit of a waste of time on my part, but I brought him over, did the first chapter for him, started grinding, and then I had a 2-man crew. And then I was just trying to grind and get through the first chapter and second chapter of each character. And then the same thing kind of happened where I got to, I believe it was like the mansion for Ulbrich. And I just was getting stomped with these different enemies. I didn't have the spells and the protection, so you kind of need those from the other characters to be able to advance fluidly. So I then had to go and get the next character, and then I basically just went through all 8, did all of their chapter 1s, and then at any save point I had access to all 8 of the characters, and I would take them and go and come and go. And I did enough exploration that I was able to find the different like shrines where you go and find the different job classes. So at that point you can basically have one character do all 7 separate jobs that he can't do. So I basically built it up real quick to where I had access to all the characters and had access to all the jobs. But then what kind of happened was that I would take, like, you know, Therion is my main character, this guy right here attacking, and he was my main character. No matter what, he can't leave the party. So I would get to a save point and then say I would swap out the 2 females that are in my group. I'd swap them out for the other 2 guys, bring them in, grind them up, and then I'd have like 6 characters that were all like level 40 or 30 or 20, and then I'd have 2 other straggler characters that I just wasn't giving enough time or attention to, and I wasn't bringing them in enough, and then they were lacking behind. But then I guess it was good because once you finally brought them back in, they would actually level up fairly quickly. So this game it definitely was ambitious. It had a lot thought out, and it did do a lot right. It did a lot right. I can't say that enough. From the music to the battling to the depth of story, even though it's in a short amount of time because you have 8 characters, and even though all those 8 characters, you know, I guess if I didn't waste that first 10 hours, I mean, it wasn't a waste. I was enjoying the game. But if I started it all again, I could probably be right around the same spot I am in maybe 80 hours as opposed to the 108 hours that I'm at right now. But I'm basically have beat the whole game with all the characters and stuff, so. But I can't take anything away from this game. I can only add to it. And there's definitely going to be a sequel. So I don't know what the team that made this is working on. I don't know if it's going to be like Bravely Third or something in this style. You had a lot of people saying, I wish they would do like a Secret of Mana remake, which they are. It's not like this, but they were saying, you know, when we first saw this game, like, oh man, a Secret of Mana or like a Chrono Trigger in this type of style would be awesome. And it would be. I mean, it's very unique for this game. I would just hope to see a sequel that either takes some of the characters away, adds some new ones, and maybe makes it so that you don't have to have just one character that can't leave your party while you have 7 others that you are trying to basically tend to and level up because you don't want to have this super imbalance, you know, and finish the story of 5 different others. And then when you're like, okay, it's time to do the last 2 guys, you have 4 characters in your party total, so you have the 2 newer ones that you've neglected, and they're like level 10, and everybody else is level 70 or 80, because it still takes a while to level up. Especially the more levels you go, it'll be quick at first, and then it'll be a slow burn to get them back up to that point. And there's definitely a lot of strategy in this game. There's a lot of different bosses that throw different curveballs, and they have like different patterns on what different spells you can actually hit them with or can't hit them with. And there actually is a lot of like magic. There's a lot of different, you know, light base, dark base. You have all your fire, ice, stuff like that, darkness, paralysis. But then you have some of like the extra ones that only work towards certain characters. You have certain weapons that will do certain things that will, you know, you also have the boost mechanic, which is pretty cool because I can come over here and basically use like this Aber's Reckoning with a 4 times, and that just does 10,000 damage, and the further you go, the more damage you can do. But anyways, wow. I guess I had a lot to say about this game. This game is great. If none of you guys have ever checked it out, I highly, highly encourage that if you are a fan of RPGs, and I guess if you ever liked a Super Nintendo RPG, this is the game for you. Go and get it on the Nintendo Switch or on the PC, and you know, it's actually come to mobile over in Japan only. So maybe someday we will see that. It's basically a prequel, but at the current point in time, it is not translated. So hopefully we see that someday. And I'm hoping maybe in the next year and a half or 2, maybe we'll see a sequel to this game. So I just wanted to come in real quick and talk about the great Octopath Traveler celebrating its first birthday. So guys, let me know, did you play it? Leave it in the comments below. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. There's a giveaway over there, and especially if you like the video, hit the like button. And if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Got more videos like this coming up, more celebration, more topics, more talking, more reviews, more looks at on just everything gaming. Alright guys, happy birthday to Octopath Traveler. So anyways guys, until next time.